The Miami Grand Prix is the latest Formula One race that took place. Welcome to F1 Freaks, and today we will look at the highlights of the Miami Grand Prix. Red Bull's reigning champion took P2 off Carlos Sainz into turn 1 at the start, and soon began to close in on Leclerc. The Ferrari driver lost the lead to his rival on the main straight at the start of lap 9 of 57, and pitted from mediums to hards on lap 24, causing Verstappen to react with his stop 2 laps later. It seemed that Verstappen would cruise to victory in front of Miami Gardens Marina. The lap 47 restart saw Verstappen lead away but struggled to build up a gap to Leclerc. It was equally difficult for Sainz, who was being hounded by medium-shot Sergio Perez for the final podium place. Perez attempted to pass Sainz on lap 52 but locked up, both drivers avoiding contact, while Leclerc was under half a second behind Verstappen in the chase for the lead. But neither Perez nor Leclerc could make headway, and the win, narrow as it was over the Ferraris, would be Verstappen's. The Alfa Romeo driver seemed destined for P5, having started there, but his late mistake left him 7th. The Alpines were next, Esteban Ocon finishing 8th from Fernando Alonso in 9th, the latter having been penalized by 5 seconds for contact with Gasly. Alonso was given a further 5-second penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage on the penultimate lap, promoting Alex Albon to P9, Lance Stroll to P10, and demoting the two-time champion to 11th. Kevin Magnussen retired late on after contact with Lance Stroll, as did Sebastian Vettel, who started in the pits and was tapped out of the race by Mick Schumacher. Gasly did not finish after his contact with Norris, while Zhou Guanyu was the first retiree, having been pulled into the pits on lap 7. Despite starting on the front row, Ferrari couldn't convert their advantage to a Miami Grand Prix win, while Max Verstappen has now made it 2 wins in a row. Ferrari painted the front row red thanks to pole sitter Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, with row 2 belonging to the Red Bulls, Max Verstappen ahead of Sergio Perez, while Alfa Romeo's Valtteri Bottas would share row 3 with former Mercedes teammate Lewis Hamilton. Aston Martin encountered pre-race fuel temperature trouble, both Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel starting from the pit lane to avoid a penalty from the FIA, while Esteban Ocon would begin from the back for Alpine, having crashed in FP2. Bushels of ominous clouds looming, concrete walls closing in, 18 drivers lined up on the grid. Amid the stifling heat, 4 drivers, Stroll, Vettel, George Russell, and Ocon, began on hard compounds, while the other 16 started on mediums. While Leclerc held station in the lead, Verstappen was just over a second behind, with Hamilton, now complaining of damage after the lap 1 tap from Alonso, breezing past the Alpine driver from P7 on the run-up to turn 11 on lap 3. On lap 6, he took P6 off Gasly, and the 7-time champion was back where he began. Also, if you guys are loving the content so far, please let us know by smashing the like button, and also make sure you hit the subscribe button. Lap 8 saw Verstappen get well into DRS range, right on the tail of Leclerc, and the Dutchman made the pass for the lead on the main straight at the start of lap 9. Leclerc prepared his rebuttal, tailing the Red Bull throughout the next lap, but the reigning champion was now in a commanding position. Ferrari began to struggle. Lap 13 saw Leclerc suffer a lockup at turn 17, his deficit now at 2.5s to Verstappen, while Perez was closing in on Sainz for P3. Mercedes, meanwhile, were on a march, with Hamilton opening up a gap to Pierre Gasly behind, the Frenchman holding off Alonso for P7, while Russell's hard tires came into play, and he passed Ricciardo on lap 14. In an attempt to undercut Gasly, Alonso pitted 1 lap later, but his stop lasted over 5 seconds, and he emerged 13th. Lando Norris chose to pit soon after. David Beckham watching the 3-second stop unfold, with the McLaren driver emerging 12th, but falling to both Aston Martins on lap 19. 2 laps later, he went wide in Sector 3 to bring out a short yellow flag. Towards the front, Russell was now up to 7th, behind Hamilton. Back in the fight for the podium places, Perez was on the radio to relay that his engine had gone, his pit wall attempting to reassure the Mexican as he complained of a loss of power on the lengthy straights. A sensor issue was to blame and Perez was back, but had lost considerable time, and some engine power to boot, to Sainz ahead. Hamilton was brought into the pits on lap 23, emerging 7th with a smooth stop, just ahead of McLaren's yet-to-pit Ricciardo, and giving the rest of the top 10 something to respond to. Leclerc was next to pit, a swap to hards taking 3.2 seconds as he emerged in P4 on lap 25. That caused Verstappen to react at the end of the next lap and emerged second ahead of teammate Perez, leaving Sainz in the lead until the Spaniard stopped for hard compounds along with Perez at the start of lap 27. Sainz's stop, however, lasted 5.4 seconds. Perez making ground with a 3.1 second stop to reignite the fight for P3. Then on lap 41, Gasly, who had previously been tapped at the final corner by Alonso, went wide at turn 8, rejoined, and clashed with Norris, ripping the McLaren's rear right tire off and sending him into a spin. A virtual safety car was called, soon morphing into a safety car. Russell took that moment to pit for the first time, dropping from 5th to 7th, with Perez swapping a second time along with a number of others, hoping to snatch positions. Hamilton was asked if he wanted to follow suit, but decided to stay out and try to protect his P6 position. The lap 47 restart would therefore see Verstappen lead Leclerc and Sainz, the top 3 on hards. Then we had medium-tired Perez, Bottas, then Hamilton and Russell in the top 7. Alonso, now holding a 5-second penalty for contact with Gasly, led Schumacher and Ocon at the back of the top 10. Up and down the grid, the chase was back on. Perez was right on Sainz's tail, the Spaniard having run wide on lap 48, giving the Mexican a run for the final podium place. However, the Red Bull driver made his move on lap 52, locked up, and caused Sainz to dodge an avoidance. Sainz swept past for P3 and completed the podium. Meanwhile, right at the front, Leclerc had closed the gap to within half a second, but Verstappen held firm, going on to take his second consecutive victory of the season by an eventual 3.786. Russell and Hamilton had their own duel on the restart. Medium tires helped Russell close in on Hamilton on lap 49. With Bottas going wide at turn 17, both Mercedes swept past. Russell passed Hamilton at turn 11, but was forced to give the position back, having gone off track. He retook P5 a few laps later, leaving Hamilton to lament another unfortunate tire call on the radio. Bottas' late mistake put him 7th, ahead of the soft-tired Ocon. The Frenchman started at the back, but had made up 12 places by lap 37, classified in P8 and ahead of Alonso, as the Spanish driver was given a 5-second penalty for making contact with Gasly early on. A further 5-second penalty dropped Alonso to 11th, promoting Alex Albon from 10th to 9th, having weathered the chaos in the final safety car restart, and Stroll to 10th from 11th. Ricciardo pitted for hards on lap 30 and again for softs for the late safety car restart, but couldn't make it count, finishing 12th after a penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. That promoted Stroll up into the final point. AlphaTauri's Yuki Tsunoda fell out of the top 10 past the halfway point and finished 13th, having also ended the race on softs. A gamble that didn't pay off for him. Tsunoda was however promoted to 12th after the post-race penalties for Alonso and Ricciardo. That left Williams driver Latifi in P14. Despite battling with Tsunoda early on to get into the top 10 and then again with teammate Magnussen, Schumacher was classified P15 thanks to late contact with a baffled Vettel, whose race started and ended in the pits. The podium saw the top 3 celebrate in front of Miami Dolphins legend Dan Marino and his statue. On this given Sunday, it was Verstappen who ran the whole 9 yards in pursuit of his second consecutive victory and the first Miami Grand Prix win in history. And that was our recap of the Miami Grand Prix. What did you think about the race? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.